This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where we talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and local Winnipeg celebrities. We get to learn who they are, how they think, and we get to hear their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and their businesses.
Today, I have Patrick Vandoorne. Did I say that right?
Very close. Vandoorne.
Vandoorne.
Yeah.
Patrick is a structural engineer and the owner of Kairos Engineering. Patrick graduated in 2015. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
Nope, you're good. Yeah.
And has worked for other firms for several years until he opened up his own firm just recently at the start of 2021.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yep.
Patrick is incredibly detailed yet practical, and his combination of building science, social media presence, and his overall high energy has really boosted Patrick into being a much sought after, integral part of not only my projects, but so many other builders. Now, I first met Patrick on Instagram, where he was describing some aspect of building science that I was dealing with on another project, and I have been absolutely blown away by him ever since. So, Patrick, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I don't think I deserve all of that, and I don't know where I fit in as far as business owner, executive, or celebrity, but I'll take celebrity and we'll run with it.
Well, I'll give you whichever one you want.
Perfect.
Yeah. But you do own your own business.
Yes.
You do work not for somebody else. You work for yourself.
That depends on who the client is. But
That's
yes,
fair.
Yes.
Yeah, very fair. So the first thing, the way that I met you, your Instagram is legitimately, as the kids call it, fire.
Oh, well, thank you. I love the fire emoji. Pops up quite a bit on my phone.
Yeah, I know. It's because you're crazy.
That is true.
Yeah.
I said yesterday that I don't take coffee because I just can't handle any more energy a little bit. A little bit of pre-workout once in a while, as long as it's like before noon. But if I take any caffeine after noon, I'm in trouble. Yeah, I'm sitting there twitching in bed at 10 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
So you are, so I think, and I'll let you, we'll dive into your social, but not only are you pretty much one of the most consistent people on my feed, but you're also describing really difficult aspects of building and complicated things about building. And you're making it simple, right? You're very good at explaining stuff. How did this come about? Where did that, was it an active decision? Has it been a slow progression? Where did your social media presence come from?
That's a long story, but we'll try and summarize it a little bit here. In the building industry right now specifically, I mean, that's kind of what I'll talk to you in reference to because that's the industry I'm in. We are way behind times as far as the level of building, the quality that we should have, the even just the level of understanding. And there's a level of, I don't want to point fingers, but a level of ignorance as is bliss kind of thinking in the building industry. So where my social media came from was an education standpoint. It was specifically, well, I have a business that I want to run a certain way. I have a certain clientele that I want to market to, but I need to grow that market because that market's very, very small in Manitoba. Mm-hmm. So how do you grow a market or change a market or disrupt a market that is stuck, that has been stuck really since the mid 60s? Well, you educate, and you have to do that in a way that's simple and understanding to people because learning is scary to people, especially builders who've been doing things the same way for a long time.
Right.
You have to, it's like a slow molding process where you have to take something that has been the same way forever and slowly show them a different way and show it in a way that's simple and then show it in a way that they can understand and implement in their business. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the social media came from, is how do I change an entire industry as one person? It's impossible without the outreach. It would have been impossible 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. But now with social media, we have, on a daily basis, thousands of people are looking at what I'm providing. And that's not just builders, because builders can only influence a market so much. I think they have a responsibility as a builder to educate their client, but it's really the client who needs to see the value in what that builder can provide them. They need to request it. It needs to be part of the, how do you say it? It needs to be like part of the industry itself, or part of their philosophy, almost as a community of people, or as an like, let's say the people of Winnipeg, you need to ask for better buildings to get better buildings. So how do you know to ask the right questions to get better buildings?
Not only that, what is a better building?
And what is a better building? Exactly. So you need to change people's perspective on what it all comes down to. You need to change their expectations of what a good building is. And that's what my social media is there for. It's to educate the people and the builders, the developers, on what a better building is and how to go about doing it.
So that was an active thought
Yes.
that you had, as far as I'm gonna influence the industry. How do I change things?
Absolutely.
That's phenomenal.
And it just works out to be good marketing. I don't have a website. I don't have a business card. My business isn't tied to Google. You can go to Google and type in Kairos Engineering and nothing shows up. I don't have a Facebook bot. I don't have a Facebook page, like a Facebook business page. There's nowhere where you can find my phone number or email online. And that's not necessarily intentional. That's just because I'm too busy to actually do it. But
It's a good problem to have.
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But that's where it's just found the right people through that social media as well. And it's just become a huge marketing. It started as an education and then it became a marketing thing. And then it's led to, I had a call yesterday, just someone messaged me on Instagram out of the blue. Hey, we have a high performance build in Wolseley. We want to do Larson truss assembly outside the existing envelope. And our engineers are not on board with this at all because the old man's club of engineering, whatever, call it what you will. We need some help with this. Are you willing to help us? I said, yeah, absolutely. Give me a call this afternoon. They called me. We talked for half an hour and they sent me the plans and signed a proposal within, a few hours. And it's just such a, like social media, you'd think, oh, that's such a cold market. Like people contacting you is a cold market thing. But these people have been following me for months now and they understand what I'm doing and they understand my philosophy and they're resonating with that, obviously. And the right people that are resonating with it are sending me messages asking me to be their engineer.
How did you get so good at explaining things?
University sports interviews. Yeah. So I played baseball, Division I in the U.S. For
North Dakota?
3 years. Yeah, University of North Dakota. So the Fighting Sioux transferred to the Fighting Hawks halfway through. It was a bit of a sore point, but that's okay. Yeah, whatever. It's not my place to be the owner of the name of some place. So, but it just that ability to talk, the ability to talk in front of a phone, in front of a microphone, in front of reporters. I think that helped for sure.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. That's really funny because starting out in social media, how long have you been pushing Instagram or social in general?
Well, my roommate used to make fun of me all the time because I was the worst Twitter person ever. He's like, your first tweet was the worst thing I've ever read. And that's the reason you have one like on it. But, so I ended up deleting Twitter shortly afterwards and haven't ever got it back. He crushed my confidence there.
I feel like everyone's first tweet was like, I hope this works.
Yeah.
Or like something, you know.
I think mine was of a McChicken or something. It was like late night snack after the bar on a Saturday night. It was like, what's wrong with that?
Look at everyone's first TikTok. It's going to just be the same thing of like, I don't know how this works.
Yeah. Let's try a dance video.
Ooh, that's another. TikTok is a whole other beast.
Yeah.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? It's the same concept.
It's the same concept. And like I was at a project yesterday. I'll just throw a little tag in here. The adventure huts in Turtle Mountain Provincial Park. I helped design and implement that with a local guy. Okay. Basically, it's just they're like 8-foot by 20-foot cabins that you can rent. It's kind of like a weekend getaway kind of thing for cross country skiing in the winter. Biking trails, hiking trails. There's a toboggan hill, skating rink there. He's just, it's, completely lost my train of thought there. It's all good.
So really business in any market is 3 things: finding leads, closing leads, and building processes and systems to support those. Rinse and repeat. Right. So finding leads, part of marketing, that's the lifeblood. If you don't have leads coming in, it's over. What I find and even myself and other small companies is they start on the processes and they start on the systems and they start growing and they get the business card, they get the website, they get the logo and all that stuff, which by the way, you have a sweet logo and
thank you. I spent years developing it.
But you, by just the way that you thought about it, and there is a question coming, as far as the way that you thought about it and approached like your marketing and educating people, you started, I would say, in the right way. You loaded your pipeline just insanely, and we see how busy you are right now. Was that a thought about, was that a business decision, or was that simply kind of purpose-driven decision to change the industry and see where it goes from there?
That's about 15-part answer again, but it...
Two-part question.
15-part answer. 15-part answer,
Yeah.
Exactly. A bit of both. So it was almost not intentional, and it was almost a finding of purpose story for me.
Okay.
Because, so I started in commercial industry. I started working for a firm in Winnipeg, a structural engineering firm. I worked there, and they were great people, great firm to work with, great place to start my career. And then
I think I'm using them right now.
Are you using them right now?
Yeah.
Oh, no, there he goes. He's using GGH. Yeah. So I work directly under Dennis Hodgkinson, who is their CEO, and Ryan Feidler, who is their, I guess he'd be their head of structural.
Okay.
And I mean, I can't say enough about those guys. They basically took me in and gave me an opportunity to work on some absolutely amazing projects, but they did it in a way that wasn't large firm-esque.
Okay.
They did it in a way that was like, here's a deck on your first day. Go ahead. If you have questions, I'm not going to answer them until you're done. Figure it out. Then come see me and we'll talk all the way through it.
Yep.
And it was great. And there was like that processing went from decks to, but they didn't do any residential, or they didn't at that point. But basically it went from that to, small light frame wood construction to mid-rise hotels. And then heck, like 14 months in, I was project managing $1 billion project in Calgary. And the fact that they trusted me with that was pretty incredible. And then unfortunately, it was a sad day. I had to leave there because my wife and I are from Western Manitoba. We decided to move back closer to family. Went back into the commercial industry there as well with another firm out of Brandon. And it was definitely a different experience. Let's just say my first day, we'll start with the interview. My interview process there was, and keep in mind that I'm coming from a place where I had a lot of respect for the people. The interview was pretty short, but the first thing they said was, well, you're coming from DGH, so obviously you haven't really had a good first year experience. Because
that's the tone.
Yeah, because really they know nothing and their integrity is nothing.
Wow.
And I was like, and it should have been a red flag. You'd think, right? It's like
hindsight.
Hindsight. But then I think, I'm, what was I, 22 at the time? And I was just like, well, I guess I don't really know because I've never had a different experience.
Right.
So maybe that's the truth.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, you shouldn't have been working on those projects you were working on. I said, okay, well, I feel like I earned that, but maybe I didn't. Mm-hmm. Maybe I got thrown into too much to begin with. Yeah. And then it almost became like I'm going down rabbit holes here, but it almost became a push and shove of trying to prove myself in a place that almost had pre-expectations that I wasn't enough because of where I worked before. Okay. And it was a rough experience.
Sounds like an abusive relationship.
It was an abusive relationship. It absolutely was. And I think it came from a good intent, like as in like, we're going to, bash you until we mold you into what we want you to be. Okay. But it wasn't who I was, and it wasn't a good fit for me. Yeah. So I ended up getting an offer but anyways, that was commercial industry.
You were there for how long?
2.5 years.
Okay.
2.5 years. And then I ended up getting an opportunity from another firm out in Red Deer who wanted me to work remotely for them in Boys Vane, which is my hometown. Mm-hmm. They wanted me to work remotely for them. And we did that for 2 years. And then, and under a great, it's actually a good friend of Dennis Hodgson at DGH, mm-hmm. who I worked with, who was working in Red Deer. They did lots of work together before. Kind of a guy who's pushing 60 years old, wants to retire, needed some help, kind of reducing his workload. And it was turned into a great relationship, have a ton of respect for this guy. But it became almost my own business because I was on my own working out of my basement with my computer with really, I've sat down and across the table with this guy maybe for 1 week in my entire life. And I've worked with him for 3 years. We talk on the phone maybe once every 2 or 3 days, but I have my roles and responsibilities and I know what those are. And it's a good working relationship. And so where this came about was, well, now I have all this extra time. So I was getting my work done, probably it was giving me a lot of extra time. I was getting my work done. I was meeting the expectations and I wasn't necessarily asking for more work. Because I didn't see myself as like, I'm going to work for this guy in Red Deer for the rest of my life. So I wasn't pushing, to be an overachiever with his firm, which I had my roles, my responsibilities. I was running my clients that I had with him, but really on the side of that piqued my interest on building science. And so I met, my wife and I bought a home. It was a fairly large home in Boissevain, and it was kind of the eye opener that I needed to understand quality versus not quality. So this house was built by, it was like a $2.2 million property this guy built, and he fire sold it because he wanted to leave, and he was a multimillionaire and he didn't care. We bought it for $600,000. So, we thought, okay, this is our dream home. This is great. This is the house that we want to have forever. It's not massive. It was 3,000 square feet. So it was big, but it was just, it looked immaculate. It seemed well done. I'm an structural engineer. I did an inspection of it. Nothing seemed to be failing.
That's your current home right now that you're still in?
No.
Okay.
We fire sold it afterwards. And we get in there for 3 or 4 months. And then it was like, man, all the rooms at the edges of the house are cold. And we have water in our basement. We have frogs and salamanders getting into our house somehow. We have mice in here, and I don't understand where they're coming from because I've been around this house 3 times and can't find a hole or an access. So what is going on here? And then, we had roof leaks, and it's just like, okay, this is enough. Like, why would I pay $600,000 for something that's not enjoyable? That's not a good experience. Yeah. And when I found out, when I started digging into things, was, it was built fast. It was built cheap. The guy who built it didn't have a lot of patience. And he was like, let's get this thing up. You can't do it by the end of the week. You're fired. Somebody else is coming in to do the roof. I'll get a commercial guy out of Brandon to come in and do the roof in a day. So we did a roof in a day, and we had roof leaks. Right. So, and it just wasn't a well thought out thing. So this just ran me down a hole of, okay, now I got people asking me, like friends and family, saying, hey, you got some extra time? Do you want to help me out with this house? Do you want to help me out with this? Yeah, sure. Like, as long as, as long as I don't take on a lot of responsibility or whatever in this, like, I can help you through the process or whatever. And then I just started learning more and more. And then I ran into other people's social media presence and YouTube accounts. And I didn't really realize what was all out there. So it just ran into basically this rabbit hole of a 2 to 3 year learning process of every day, just watching videos and, reading buildingscience.com website insights.
Okay, let's jump into this. Who are you watching? Who are the big first social media kind of?
The big one that I ran into, I was looking at a structural slab design, and I ran into Matt Reisinger.
I knew him.
Yeah. So I ran into him on YouTube.
That guy's a beast.
He is. And he's seems like just a good person. But so ran into him, and then just, started clicking on next video. Ran into, which basically turned into running into his colleagues being, Steve Basic, Wade Paquin, Brett Hall. I don't watch a lot of Brett Hall's videos. I'm not quite creative enough yet for that. But then he started this Build Show Network, and then they started some podcasts, and it's just been, and then from there it was finding Building Science Corporation. Their website is phenomenal. And then from there it was finding Positive Energy out of Austin, Texas, who does a Building Science podcast. And that's like engineer geeky stuff, where it's like he's talking what the vapor compression cycle is in VFR, mechanical systems, right? So that's getting like a whole new level. Whereas, Matt Reisinger tries to hit it from the high points. He tries to hit, generally this is a great weeping tile system if you can afford it. But whereas this guy, he dives into like phase change materials, like just stuff that nobody even thinks about, nobody even understands unless you have that kind of physics background. Yep. And I kind of dig that nerdy stuff a little bit. And then, so that's kind of got me. And I thought, well, if he's doing it and what he's doing for the industry, why can't I do that? Right. And it's not that I want to grow this like influencer account that, makes money for me. It's that I want to grow my business through that. If that makes sense.
I think probably could be both.
It could really be both, right? And hopefully maybe it does become both. I mean, not necessarily from the financial side, but hopefully it becomes to the point where if I have 1 million people watching my videos every day, I know I'm hitting a pretty good population of Manitoba in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you done anything on YouTube?
No, I haven't. I only have an Instagram account. Okay. I don't even have LinkedIn or Facebook or anything. And I need to branch out on that. It just becomes my biggest and maybe we're getting there, but my biggest struggle with business is time and finding time. And I'm sure that's everybody's biggest struggle, and it's burnout. And it's okay. So where do we go from an Instagram account that doesn't take a lot of time? I mean, I take some stories every day. I post one post every day, even in that time, like, okay, I'm taking 15 minutes away from a project I could be working on. Well, that's my marketing. I understand I have to spend time on it.
Yep.
How long would it take to transfer that into YouTube, into podcast, into TikTok, into Twitter, into
time.
Exactly. It just keeps eating up time. And until I can get to a place in my business where I have people that assist me with that stuff, then it's just not feasible right now, I don't think.
Right.
That, or I have to choose to take on less work. And that's a revenue issue. So that's marketing versus revenue. What do you choose? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that every business owner, growth is a very tumultuous conversation. You know, do you do this first? Do you hire first? Do you do you wait till you're inundated with work to hire somebody, or do you hire somebody before and ready? Right. There's always that.
These are what I'm going through on the daily basis right now. It's like, I know I have the revenue to hire somebody right now. Like it would triple my revenue actually if I could hire someone and get away from drafting myself. But there's a level of hands-on that I'm really enjoying with that right now, that I know there's learning processes, and I know there's training processes, and I know that I know I have high expectations for the products that I'm delivering. So I'd have to find the right person, and doing that from I don't have an office, so it would be a remote employee. So doing that from a remote standpoint would be difficult.
You have a basement.
I do have a basement,
you
but
have an office.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's nobody who knows AutoCAD in Boys of Vain, Manitoba. So, and I mean, you hear those stories all the time of the people who started in their basement or started in their garage, but I don't know if that's where
we started our everything in the basement.
Perfect.
Absolutely,
like DGH story, they was talking about them earlier. They started in a shipping container. They bought a shipping container and turned it into their office, and there was 3 of them that worked in there. So,
my wife works for the CEO of 24/7 In Touch.
Okay.
So they're 17,000 employees worldwide.
Yeah.
Him and his brother started that in their basement in Regina.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Call center.
Yeah. That's really neat.
I just picture the two of them with 2 phones starting a call center, right? And now, so it really, and I think that you've been able to really what you're saying is exactly what I wanted you to say.
That's fair.
It's phenomenal that you came from a place of, I don't need this other shit. Or here's what's important to me. Here's a purpose-driven statement. And now I'm going to focus on educating and getting that out and get those leads.
And to get back to your original, I know like I went way around the wheel on that one, but to get back to your original question of, did it start with the systems or did it start with the purpose or the mission? And again, I think it's both, because obviously that's where the mission came from. The mission to start my own company came from my negative experiences. And I can go farther into that, and I'm going to go farther into that because why not? Why not? Edit it out if you want. Yeah. But we can, when I started
we have
learning,
Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Yeah. Well,
there somewhere.
We're going to Simon here yet. Yeah. But we can, when I started learning more and more, I started understanding, well, how has this affected my life in the past? So if you really want to dig down the mold, mildew, then the cause, and like there's, I mean, you can find anything in a study that you want to find, but there are good studies out there that say that divorce rates are 80% higher in homes with mold growth.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm not even joking. Like,
no, you cannot.
You can. There are organizations out there that show like, okay, if 60% of homes have, black mold in them, and it's a neurotoxin, and you go and Google the effects of black mold on your nervous system, it's insane.
That's a dirty rabbit hole.
It is a dirty rabbit hole. And then you start looking at indoor air quality, which is my big kick right now. And you look at indoor air quality and you say, okay, I grew up in a 1904 stone farmhouse. So no insulation, stone walls. wood timber floors kind of thing. It's a good, solid structural house, but the basement filled up with a foot of water every year just because we had high water table. We were by a creek, and there was no waterproofing foundation, whatever back then.
Yeah.
So that's, leading to some mustiness.
So you were rich. You had a swimming pool.
We had a swimming pool. Absolutely. An indoor swimming pool. Yeah. High humidity.
Yeah.
High humidity. That was my next point. And then, which led to, condensation on windows, which led to sill rot and stuff like that. And then, we had a coal furnace when I was a kid in the basement. So we were pumping burning coal. And I sound like I'm like 80 years old right now.
How old are you?
Yeah, exactly. And we did that for 2 years. I developed asthma. My sister developed asthma. She's 23 months younger than me. When my sister developed asthma, we switched to a wood burning fire boiler that was out in the yard. So we had to go cut wood or whatever. My dad's, put wood in the boiler.
Like that was a decision based on both of you guys getting asthma, or was it just like, it just so happened?
I think it just so happened to be a better alternative to coal at that time.
Good change.
Yeah,
good
exactly.
change. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the coal room was abandoned, and then basically that moved to using the forced air coal ducts without them ever being cleaned. And my parents, I'll give them credit. They just didn't know.
Yeah.
But using those ducts, and now they're blowing the air from the wood fireplace that's out in the yard through these coal ducts. And like you could sit on the couch and the sun's coming in through the window, if you can picture that, and you can like see the dust. Like you could collect the dust in your hands. And then, I had some pretty major asthma issues when I was probably like 8, 9. Like I spent a week in the hospital at one point, kind of thing. Like some pretty scary. I have some PTSD around an asthma attack I had when I was 8. I was sitting in front trying to get warm because our house was always freezing, because either my parents were cheap or we had no insulation, one of the two. But or dad didn't want to go out and stoke the fire that one night. But yeah. But I was sitting in front of this register and trying to get sitting in front of the heat, or bump the mic. And I just remember can't breathe. And then I just remember laying in the back of the vehicle. My parents are hitting me with Ventolin, running to the hospital. And it's, as an 8-year-old, that's a pretty traumatic experience. And I don't remember kind of what happened in the hospital after that. But then I'm thinking about indoor air quality. And I'm thinking, but my brother never developed asthma. So I started asking my parents, like, why wait? Like, what happened? Like, what did we change? Well, we moved to electric baseboard heat after you had that asthma attack, because we figured that, maybe it did have something to do with it. No way. And then I found out my mom's brothers all have asthma. My grandpa has asthma. And I'm thinking, okay, so maybe it wasn't genetic. Wow. Maybe it was the environment we were living in.
Yeah. And
so, And then that just becomes part of the purpose and part of the mission, and it just kind of becomes self-reinforcing. But now I'm going to go to the other side of things. Now that's the purpose side of things. The systems, I am 100%. I've done a lot of Myers-Briggs personality typology, Enneagram. I've done kind of all of those things through businesses I was a part of, kind of got me into it, and through my own personal reading. Yeah. And I am 100% a visionary person. That's me. I am, and you introduced me as this details person. That was learned, basically. That was forced to be learned in order to realize the vision that I'm trying to create for my company.
Interesting.
And I hate it. I shouldn't say I hate it. I like it because I'm interested in it, and it's like it's almost like there's a squirrel, let's chase it kind of mentality. But it's very much I have a vision for what I want my company to look like. I have a vision for the mission that I want my company to do. I already know how I'd set it up. I know what systems I want in place, first of all in my head, not on paper. And then I've taken that purpose and said, okay, how can I apply this to that? And what does that look like? And that's kind of where Kairos started, was that, okay, I want to see change. I have a vision for what my company could be based on that change. I need to influence a market to create a market that's, growing, I think. And then how do we create a business out of that? So it's a little bit twofold. It's the vision side of the mission, we'll put it that way. But, in 10 years time, I don't want to be doing the details. I want to be leading a company.
I hear you. That is, that's something very, very similar to my story as far as figuring out who you are, what you're really good at, what you're not good at. I too am on the visionary side, more on the let's results side,
Yep.
right? That's always a word that comes up in mine. And the fact that you've done all that stuff and your growth, not only personally, but in business is also what attracted me to you. And I think that's why we get along so well.
That's fair. Yeah.
But I had to do that too. I went back to school. So I was a firefighter for 11 years.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And with the city, I just got really bored.
Yeah.
And I went to what we call the country club, which is just a really slow haul.
Yep.
And I figured, you know what? I'm so bored. I'm going to go back to school.
Yeah.
And I took my architectural drafting. Okay. Because I really liked buildings. I liked building things. But I also liked designing, and I liked everything about it until I started doing it. So I finished the 2-year program in like 10 months. Yeah. Because one, I was a bit older. I was older than everyone else in the class, except for people that were getting sent there by their engineering firms or whatever. Yeah. But I was just a dude in there that paid to do this on my own time. So I just crushed through it. Yeah. But the issue was I am not detailed at all. And like, there's certain details that, you have to be. But when I was sitting there looking at a line on a computer screen, realizing like, oh, this isn't me, this is not me. And so in order to, the way that you see stuff, you see your systems. I didn't even know what a system was at that time.
It's fair. Yeah.
I just knew that, this is the direction I want to go. And I just started moving that way. It's kind of like we talked about, like this podcast setup and the videos and everything. Yeah. Like our YouTube has grown substantially. And I had no idea what I was doing early on. Right. Yeah. And so it's kind of like taking that first step forward. And I think that's right now you're getting the best problem to have is too much work.
Yes.
Of all the problems that you could have.
Yes.
That's the best one for you to have.
It is. And the personal problem that I have is being able to say no. I had this conversation with a builder yesterday about, we have a project coming up, this high performance build or passive house certified trades and design firm. I was like, okay, all right. So you get it. You're my ideal client. And I think I've said that to you before too. Like, I have my ideal client. I know who that is. And now I look at my schedule and I'm like, I have 15 people who are not my ideal client on my schedule. Yep. But I can't really bump anyone because that's a bit of a dick move.
Have you ever read the book Crucial Conversations?
No, but I'm about to.
Yeah. So that legitimately for any hard conversation, and it's the reason why I have cold showers in the morning, because it makes you uncomfortable and it makes you do that thing that you don't want to do. And that's the saying no.
But it's not even, okay, I understand what you're saying, but it's almost not even, it's not that I'm uncomfortable saying no. Okay. It's that I'm looking at a lost opportunity and saying, okay, I'm a solo business person. Anything, and I have very minimal costs. I am very tight on my costs. Like I said, I don't even have a website. So it's like,
I didn't not get a website because I didn't want to. I just didn't want to pay for it.
I didn't want to pay for the hosting. That's $10 a month. Yeah. But like, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, I have $1,000 job with this person that, I could do in a day or two. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's $1,000 in the bank account. Basically, I can pull 90% of that out from, my family and whatever we're doing there as revenue or profit. I'm thinking, okay, if I turn that down, like I'm losing that. But what I have, but I'm just really going through that. When do I say no? How do I work my schedule? How do we figure out I can schedule in an industry that sucks at scheduling? No offense, it's not your business, but but like, you can have 6 projects on the go and be doing nothing because you're waiting on hold for all of them, and all of a sudden have all 6, come back the same day, and then everybody wants them on Friday, and then it's like, okay, now we're gonna have a long week. But it's saying no from a lost opportunity perspective. And then if I say no to somebody, they're going to say, okay, well, he really doesn't want to work with me, which maybe is the best thing, which maybe is what we want.
I feel we're having breakthroughs.
But yeah. But, and this is great. So
John, you're fired.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, you should not be named. Yeah, no. But, and my wife doesn't want to listen to these conversations all the time. So, but it's how do I change an industry though if I'm turning people away who I think won't change either? And it's like, if I have an opportunity to bring a client in, those are when I can have the conversations of, what about an 1.5 inch of exterior insulation on this? Have you ever done that before? No, we haven't, because we don't like doing this. And we'll say, well, what if you detailed it this way and it becomes very easy? And then I can show them the breakdown that I have saved in the file that says, your 2x6 R22 wall is actually only R16, but if you add 1.5 inches of insulation to it, it's now R23. And that's like a, 30% increase in insulation value just by adding 1.5 inches insulation. You use your thermal break, and it's roughly going to save the clients this amount of money per year, and they're going to get that payback in return in 5 years. So are they going to stay in the house longer than 5 years? Why wouldn't you do it? And then that starts to change okay, maybe that makes sense. Maybe it's easy enough to do it. The detail that you showed me for how to do it around windows makes sense. We can still use our flange windows. Okay, now we can see some change. And maybe that's maybe I'm trying to change people that don't want to change, or maybe I'm trying to do too much to change the industry, or I'm taking too much on personally instead of growing my business with the people who are already on board with it. But how do you change an entire market without taking on those people as well?
Do you think that though?
Sometimes.
Like, do you think that you're trying to do too much to change the industry versus?
I think there's if I want to hire a drafting technician to get away from drawing lines, like you said, like that's not me either, but I have to do it, that I have to focus on the revenue profit side of the business as much as I have to focus on. I mean, number one rule of business is you have to be profitable. You can't have a business that doesn't work. So like I can spend all the time I want trying to change the industry on Instagram and still not making me immediate revenue. But I'm not saying that it does.
That's the key word there.
Immediate. Yeah. I'm not saying that it won't eventually, but my wife's a stay-at-home mom now because that's what we decided, because my schedule was too much for both of us to work, and we wanted to spend time with our kids too. And it's just okay. So there's a lot of pressure there around being able to provide and basically replace both of because my wife was an occupational therapist, so she did very well for herself. She has a master's degree in occupational therapy. So how do we replace both their income while running a business at the same time? And like, you have to choose your lifestyle at the point when you're opening a business. Like, you have to say, like, how much are we going to change our existing lifestyle to see the success of this business? Because it takes time, and it takes a lot of time. And my kids are 4 and 2 right now. How much time do you want to spend with them outside of business hours? And what are business hours? Are business hours actually a thing anymore when you're running your own business?
It is a holiday today.
It is a holiday
and
today.
You are here, and I am here.
And I am not just doing a podcast today. I started work at 5 a.m. this morning, and I will end work at midnight tonight, probably, if possible. Yeah. So, that's part of the sacrifice that comes with it, to realize that. And so, then it becomes how much do I really want? And as much as I have this vision and I want to change the industry, what's the trade-off in, spending all my time trying to change the industry, but not making the revenue that I could be making? It would be super, super simple, Dan, to, as an engineer with a stamp, you can cause murder. You can just say, I'm going to steal everything for $500. Send me your drawings and I will just rubber stamp that. I could make, $500,000 a year without doing much work and without probably losing a lot of sleep, and it would be easy, but that's not what I want to do. So where's the balance? And that's what I'm trying to find right now, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is, there's almost that in every industry, right? Like we could talk about builders that do that. We could talk about, any other industry, accountants, you name it, they could all do it. But you touched on something that is legitimately one of, I think, the hardest concept as a married man with kids that's starting a business is balance. And I don't like that word because it often has some interesting, different connotations to everyone. Yep. Right. But like, what is the right balance in all those fronts? So I think that ties into the word that I used for you was consistent with your Instagram. And that's created so much momentum for you. How do you look at being a father, a husband, a business owner, and an individual that's growing yourself? How do you manage that? How do you look at that? Is it do you plan that out? Is it on a daily, on a weekly, monthly?
Everything I do has to be intentional.
Okay.
So, intentional is the key word. And I have a planner that I use. I'm sure you have yours sitting here. I'm sure you use one similar. I use the Full Focus planner, and I think it's wonderful when I found it. So I went through a whole bunch of planners and tried to find systems and what works. And I couldn't find one that fit exactly what I was trying to do. So I ended up going into Excel and making my own and printing off 400 sheets and binding it into a binder and saying, okay, here's my planner.
You engineered that.
I know.
Yep.
And it's great. It's great. And it worked good. Had everything that I wanted in it. And then I thought, you know what? I don't really want to pay for a printer. So I don't want to print it. So I'm going to value engineer out the printer, and we're going to move it to just online. And I'm just going to create PDFs that I can just, use my PDF editor and just type in use the typewriter function and just type in all the boxes. Then I'll save one every week.
Yep.
And that didn't work because I need the paper feel. Yeah. So then I just got, okay, you know what? I need to try something else. Let's try this other planner. And it worked, and it worked great. But basically they have a weekly overview, as many planners do, that just outlines at the bottom. It says, what's your connection this week with people? How are you going to sleep this week? What are you going to eat this week? How are you going to exercise this week? How are you going to, and it goes through those questions that you just asked. And, I intentionally write in there, here's my meal plan for the week. Here's my exercise plan for the week. But then I look at this planner, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I look at the planner and it's got 2 pages of work tasks, and it's got one little box for what my exercise is for the week. Mm-hmm. And that little box of exercise gets pushed to the side really quick when those 2 other pages get overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And it's the hardest thing in my life right now is balancing. Like you said, I don't like the word, but it's finding intentional time to set aside for doing the activities that I know I need to do, the whole sharpen the axe kind of thing before you chop the tree kind of idea. And so that's my biggest downfall in my life right now. Like I set quarterly goals, and I said quarter 4 was going to be for, my personal health. I reached a whole bunch of business milestones in quarter 3. Quarter 4, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to write out my business goals that I did, I'll continue them on. But at the same time, I'm going to focus on my personal health this quarter, because I'm not in the best personal health right now because of my business. And I say because it's not because of my business, it's because of the way I'm choosing to operate my business. Is I'm choosing to prioritize my business over my health, which can't happen for a long period of time if I want to live very long. Yeah. So
choosing the word choose.
Yeah. Everything's a choice.
Goes along with intention. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Everything's a choice there. And so what I really need to do, and what is the hardest part, is doing a little bit good of everything. Like I haven't been able to achieve those quarter 4 goals yet, because it's going to happen yet. Mm-hmm. But because of my business success that I had in quarter 3 is overwhelming me in quarter 4, and it's just continuing on. And now I need to hire, and now I'm going through all those same questions we talked about earlier, and how the heck do you get about this the first time? And so, but what really needs to happen is just intentional time set aside for everything, and an ideal week schedule created. And you don't always need to follow your ideal week. It's not always going to happen. There are, things that happen in the world, but that are going to change that or get you away from that. But doing your absolute best intention to stick to what you say you're going to do at the start, and then learning to say no when you can't do it, but then having enough of a understanding or an awareness of your schedule of where you can fit in things and can't fit in things, and then balancing that with the clients you want to take on and not take on, and where you want to grow your vision of your business and where that all fits in. It's a hard thing to do, to check all the boxes every day. Quality time with family, exercise, nutrition, etc. So, you can get to noon and think, okay, at noon I'm eating this meal, and I'm going to exercise at 1 p.m. in the afternoon till 2, and then I'm going to go back to work at 2. And then you get there and you're got an email at 11:55 that says, hey, here's some floor shop drawings that we need by 3. And you're like, now I have to make a choice.
Yeah.
Do I do right by my client? Do right by me, by my body, by my health? And where does that fit in, and making that decision? And that's a hard decision to make, especially when you have that vision that you're working towards. And that vision doesn't necessarily, for your business, doesn't include you in optimal health, but it needs to for the long haul. The long haul.
I think that conversation has, there was 25 rabbit holes that we could have gone down.
50. Yeah, absolutely.
There's along with balance is like this as a business owner, you have all these like, what's right, what's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think that, coming from a holistic approach of our lives and thinking like, I have to do this, or I have to do this, or, what's right, what's wrong. I think that one of the big things that has served me really well is trying to replace right and wrong with, is it serving me right now, or is it not serving me? Mm-hmm. Right.
And is it serving the overall vision, or is it not serving the overall vision? Is it serving the 5-year and the 10-year vision as well?
That's right. And looking at it as kind of a whole kind of thing. 'Cause I had that same, I've gone through all of that as far as like, how much time do I spend with my kids? Yeah. And the quantity versus quality. Mm-hmm. And, what is that connection point? I think that's a hard thing too, as, I've never met your kids, but I've seen them on social media, right? Yeah. And the fact that you're even thinking about spending time with them and balancing, it says a lot about what kind of dad you are. But even then it's like, okay, well, what am I looking for when I'm playing with them? Mm-hmm. Right? Like we want to have connection with our kids. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think one of my coaches told me like, connection is 2 things: love and fun. Mm-hmm. And if you can create those 2 things with kids, you can play for 2 minutes or 2 hours. Yeah. Right. And as long as that connection's there. Yep. And so I think that conversation of like intention and choice and planning, there is this, you're creating this momentum that it's funny when you run into somebody like yourself, or when I would have people early on say like, I don't care what you're doing, you're going to be successful, because it's a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, your prime example of it is just what you're building right now is an incredible amount of momentum that, once you get a little boat here and a little boat there, like that wave is just going to absolutely pump.
It is. And I think, and I started talking to my wife about a website the other day. I was thinking, if I had a website and you could find me on Google, I think it would be like like you said, it would be an overwhelming wave of people who, we can talk about the engineering side of it. Again, people come to me for three reasons. They come to me because they're currently unhappy with the level of detail they're getting in plans, or the oversight that are actually happening, which is, in my personal opinion, is negligence. Then they're getting they only have standard details that they work with because that's what works for them, and they're unwilling to think outside that box. And then there's I can't get a hold of him because he's actually good, and he can't communicate because he's an engineer. and those are the 3 reasons people come to me and they say, okay, well, I don't want a 5-week turnaround on my drawings. I want a 1-week turnaround time, and on revisions, I want a 3-day turnaround time. Can you do that? Yes. I'll try. I'll do my best. And
I promise to do my best.
Yeah. And my wife goes, stop answering your phone. That's why they're hiring me, because they want me to answer my phone. And then that's the number one complaint. And it's, if people could find me on, if people could actually find my contact information, I feel like it would become a lot very quickly. And I want to be very careful with how I navigate the next 2 years in bringing the right people on board. And I think the right people is really the key to that. Finding the right people developing the right systems, or at least getting the systems that I know I want that are in my head on paper, so that when I bring the right people in, I can train them properly and set appropriate expectations for what I demand. Not demand, to what, just setting appropriate expectations, what my expectations are, so that they know that and they're clear on that. And then meeting and exceeding my clients' expectations. It's all about managing expectations, really. And so if I can exceed my clients' expectations over the next 2 years while bringing on the right people and making sure that they understand what, the quality, what the vision or the mission of our company is about, and where that wants to go, I think it could be, like you said, I think it could blow up pretty quick. And I just got to be very careful that I don't go too fast. But at the same time, I kind of want to go fast. I like going fast.
I am not a patient person.
I am not either. I am not either.
No.
But it's a good thing to be a general contractor that's not patient, because then you actually get things done. My general contracting ability for my own renovation has been pretty poor with my plumber. But I haven't quite had the conversation with him yet that if you don't show up again, you might be fired. But I got to have that conversation. It's not that I don't like having hard conversations. There's just no other plumbers in town. And then I got to do it myself.
You know what? I was, who was I listening to? Ed Milet. I was listening to Ed Milet.
Okay.
Very close to Andy Frisella.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And 75 Hard is something that we can talk about too.
Yeah, sure.
But with Ed Milet, he was, I think how they put it was, if you're giving somebody a chance, but you don't tell them that you're giving them a second chance or a third chance or whatever it is, then you're completely on two different levels, right? Like you're making this decision kind of separate from them.
Internally, I made the decision that I'm going to give them a second chance,
That's
but
right.
they think they're still on the first chance. They think nothing's wrong.
And so when that comes to a point and you're like, bro, I gave you like 6 chances, and you're like, no, I'm still on chance 1.
Yeah.
Communication is an incredible barrier, or you can use it for amazing things with great communication, as you've seen in social media.
Right.
As we grow here with more people in the office and letting go, I think that letting go is going to be real tough. Something that you talked about was just, I don't want to let go quite yet, or I don't know how to let go is something that I went through. Is just
That's fair.
I don't know how to describe what I want you to do, kind of thing. And I don't think you're going to.
I want you to be me. Just be Dan. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just be Dan.
But better.
But better.
But
yeah,
better.
Yeah, but better. Yeah. No, and I understand that. And the thing that, and I think you're the same way. I want to let go. I want to not, like I said, in 5 to 10 years, I do not want to be part of the day-to-day of my business. And that's not because I'm in Kelowna sipping martinis. That's because I'm doing the weekly, quarterly, monthly, yearly checks, writing. I'm steering the rudder. And going back to Simon Senek, is that his last name? Senek. He had a great thing that I heard the other day. It was like, what's a CEO? What the hell's a CEO? Like, it's a chief executive officer. Okay, what's a CFO? Chief financial officer. Okay, so the chief financial officer is in charge of finances. The chief operations officer is in charge of operations. The chief executive officer, what the hell is he in charge of? No, nothing. Like, he's in charge of the executives. That doesn't make sense to me. So what about CVO, chief vision officer? Okay, so he's in charge of the vision. That makes sense. So, and what I think there's a huge hurdle in people like you and I, where we're not detail-oriented people, but we've kind of learned to have to adapt and be detailed in the places where we need to be. The issue is that the people with the vision should be at the top. The people with the details should be doing the day-to-day. And that's just finding the right people for the right tasks, and understanding, again, and having the self-awareness that you are what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Yep.
But there's a hurdle that has to come for the people with the vision to get to the top. There's this mundane daily activities that seem pointless, or that seem frustrating, or that seem like they're not the best use of your time, or they're not growing your company, that you have to get through in order to get to the top. You don't just enter a company and say, hey, I have good vision. Throw me at the top, please. And then I'll guide you. And that's not how it works. You have to go through the mud and the trenches and everything to end up getting yourself to that point. And that's a really difficult thing to do for people who aren't detail oriented. I feel like so many people with the vision have these grand ideas that never get past that entry level position because they're seen as incompetent, but they aren't meant for that position. But they need to find a way to get past that position.
That is incredible. I've been part of a few startups with amazing ideas. And the guys that were leading it at the time, I always thought were quite visionary and they had great visions. But I did almost think they were incompetent because they couldn't do anything that they said they were going to do. But at the same time, the vision was incredible. And I think that, the hard part is when you're starting a business, you are everything, right? You're a bookkeeper, accountant, you are everything.
Yeah.
And how, I don't know how long, you've come from firms, right? That they're well established and you made the decision to start your own. How has your mental health been since you jumped in, right? It's something that I think mental health is becoming more of a conversation.
Oh, for sure.
And when we talk about like masculinity, right? About, feelings and shit like that. But mental health, when you're starting a company and you have a family and you have a wife and you have stuff that you want to do.
I got a taste of, so we had a project, might be listening to this podcast, so I better not. We had a project, I won't mention names, but we had a project for someone who created a very big business in Winnipeg and then moved to create another business in Saskatchewan. And he was a very high performing visionary person as well. And he had very, very, very high expectations of what he wanted for this process, but had no idea about buildings. So he wanted to create a manufacturing process, which he had, figured out vision for and what that should look like. But he just needed a space. Like he needed I can't remember what it was. It was like 100,000 square feet or something like that. And he needed it within a budget and he needed it within 3 weeks from the time he contacted us. And like finished within 3 weeks. And it was not finished within 3 weeks. The design of this 100,000 square foot place designed within 3 weeks and then built within 2 months, like completely finished, built. And it was like, I don't think that's possible. And then, but I have a lot of post frame industry ties in Manitoba. And well, we could do this like an operation. Like we could build you at 80 foot wide by 1,000 foot long, 100,000 square feet. It'll work for your operations. We can have 5 crews there, so 30 guys. We can be putting in posts as people are strapping and we can just create.
Can Henry Ford it?
We can build this building. But the design isn't going to take 3 weeks. The design is where we need to be careful. And to do the design in 3 weeks, I'm going to have to put in 20-hour days. Like just so that you understand. That's right. And I ended up putting in 20-hour days for 3 weeks. And then he got fired because I was a day late. Actually, we fired him because he went off and started calling everybody arseholes when we were a day late. Yeah. And then it's just like, that is what being a business owner feels like is putting in 20-hour days for 3 weeks straight to achieve something that is almost probably never been done before. And then to get fired when you're a day late because you didn't get the results. And it was just like, okay, so there's a taste of what business feels like. And so that happened while I was working remotely for another client. We were working on this post frame building together, or working for another employer. But going back to the mental health side of things is like, I was not good after those 3 weeks. And I could tell, like, it's a different working 8-hour day from working 20-hour days and getting 4 hours of sleep every night. Like it takes a big toll on you. And I think I started to understand that then over a 3-week period. And then I thought, okay, and I was able to, at that time, take the next 4 days off and recover, do what I needed to do, and then start in fresh again. It's great. When you own your own business, you don't have that luxury. And so that's where things become very difficult is, I can work 20-hour days for a week. I can work 20-hour days for 2 weeks. I can work 15-hour days for a month. I can work 12-hour days for 6 months. I can't work 16-hour days for a year without a day off. I know that I cannot physically do that. And I don't care who you are or how great a vision you have. If you're working 16 hours a day, and we're not talking 5 days a week, we're talking 6 or 7 days a week to create a vision, you need to take time for yourself. My brother was sitting across the table from me at supper the other day. He goes, Patrick, you look like shit. What are you doing with your life? And I said, I know. He's like, take some time off. I know. Why can't you take time off? Because I have 17 active projects right now that have construction deadlines before it snows. Oh, yeah, exactly. It snowed yesterday. So, and then they're like, okay, so how, and my wife keeps saying, how are we going to change things in 2022? That's apparently like, it's kind of like starting on Monday. So we'll start with a better schedule January 1st. Yeah. Okay.
Magically.
Yeah. Magically it'll start. But so what are we going to do in 2022 that's going to be different from 2021? That's going to allow us to keep the same revenue or hopefully grow it substantially without sacrificing you, because you are the business. Like right now, like I don't have equipment. I have a computer. That's it. Right. But I am my assets. What's that?
It's a nice screen.
It's a great screen. Yeah. Thank you, previous customer that bought that for me.
There you go.
But no, it's and it's like, okay, so you have, all the assets you need, but you are the asset for this business. So if your mental health is in trouble, then we're all in trouble. And so how do we take care of you while keeping our revenue up? I said, hire somebody. We need to hire somebody, but then it's in a whole nother project. But it's a very, very easy thing to do, to fall down that rabbit hole of where's your mental health at when you're starting a business, and you don't really understand what you're getting into until you get into it. And then you become passionate about it. And when you become passionate about it, you kind of forget about everything else for a while. Or if you're like me, you do, and you kind of become very one track mind of this is what I'm going to achieve. But then there's all these other aspects of life that you're missing out on. And then you realize 3 weeks down the road or a month down the road that, oh man, I haven't spent any time with my kids. My wife's pissed at me because I haven't spent any quality time with her. And it's not because she's a bad person. It's because I have neglected. And it's, and you start looking at all these other things. It's like, what's the point of having the business if you don't have your wife anymore? What's the point of having a business if your kids don't like you? Like, there is no purpose past that, right? I mean, maybe your purpose is your business, but then why'd you get married? And it's, managing all of those is very difficult, but it absolutely is essential and it needs to happen. And we need to have the systems in place. And we're going back to that original question, was like, you started the business with a vision, not the systems. But the vision without the systems becomes what I have now, which is bad mental health and a lot of revenue. And then it becomes, okay, so where does this become sustainable? And how do we make this sustainable? And that's the big question I'm trying to answer right now. So, hey, feel free to insight me. Give me your Dan-wisdom, your Danism.
You know what? What I've found is I went through that entire cycle. I focused on the business, and I didn't focus on myself. I didn't focus on building all the other aspects of my life, and I've been down at the bottom of that, and it doesn't go very well. I think that people that become uber successful down that hole, it gets harder and harder and harder the more money you make to really get that light switch moment. I mean, when you have a semi-successful business and you hit the bottom, you're like, I'm making some money, but if you're making bank, like that's a real tough thing to say, okay, I need to change, even though I did lose my wife or my kids or whatever. Right. So, but I think the thing that's been really brought what we'll either call it a peace or light, or like things feel lighter, or joy. Oh yeah. Is really the analogy of baseball. And back to you being a baseball player. I like baseball.
Go explain.
There you go.
Explain.
Too many of us just try to hit home runs. And not only home runs, but I'm talking like every day we try to hit home runs in all aspects, right? We work, we dive, we bury ourselves into our work or into this thing, and we become just unilaterally focused on one thing at a time and I'm going to hit a home run in this, and then I'm going to go hit a home run over here, and then I'm going to go hit a home run over here.
But while you're hitting a home run over there, the team's catching up on the other end.
Oh, they're dying.
Yeah.
They're dying over there.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, we can look at Moneyball, or, that's probably the easiest one of just, we need to get on base. We need to hit singles. We need to hit singles every day.
Don't be a bull. Be an ant.
That's right.
Be an ant.
Just build it up. Build all of them up. Like, there's no reason why I can't take 5 minutes, 15 minutes a day to meditate or to read in the morning or work on writing, something as simple as a small little love note to my wife and my kids or somebody that I want to build a relationship with in my life, brothers, family members, friends that I don't talk to. Right. And then really just learning. I mean, we all have these tasks, right? Every day, but that task never dies. It never dies. It only ever grows.
It grows. It literally grows. I need to insert another piece of paper into my current organizer because the 28 tasks I'm supposed to achieve every day isn't enough.
And it's 58 now.
It's 58 now. Exactly.
Yeah, by the time we're done talking.
Yeah.
And so really it's, okay, well, what can I do that's small? What's a single that I can do every day in all of these aspects that as long as I hit those, by the end of the week, I've done it 7 times. And that becomes, right? And everything outside of that, if I get more done, great, that's amazing. But I know that I've built this foundation, and that's the foundational part that I didn't even know about, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. If you get 1% better every day, what's that compound? And another job coming in.
Just don't answer it, Patrick. Yeah. How hard is it for you right now not to answer?
Hey, Josh, you're on the podcast here.
What do you got?
What do you got for me?
Yeah.
No, but you're right. And I'm actually reading a book called The Slight Edge right now. And I was just scanning your bookshelf. Do you have it?
No.
Okay, get it. It's great.
Who wrote that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I never looked at the cover long enough.
Fair. Yep.
Yeah. It basically, the whole philosophy was this guy worked in personal development for, like, he was the guy behind the camera in the old infomercial in the 90s that was like, Oprah Winfrey's telling you to do this on this DVD set that you can buy, and you implement these things in your life and you'll be great.
Like, he was infomercial man?
Not the infomercial man.
Because I was going to say Ron Popeil, set it and forget it.
No. Okay.
For sure. Okay.
No, yeah, no, he not the infomercial one, but he was like working as like the CFO for these companies kind of thing. And he kept, or product development or something, and he kept saying, like, all this content is absolutely amazing. If people just took those 6 things that person said and did them, I mean, they'd be unstoppable, but they have to do them.
That's right.
And why aren't people doing them? And so he kind of like got into this, why aren't people doing it? Well, people didn't understand, it's like compound interest. They didn't understand compound interest. Like, okay, if you put a little bit every day, like my parents, for example, they just sold their family farm. And I don't know what my dad made per year before, but he's looking at the interest that he's gaining on. He's like, why the hell did I do this 10 years ago? I'm making 8 times what I made when I was farming, and I don't do anything. And I said, yeah, whatever. Yeah, again, but that's the idea. And it's like, if you do these slight things every day, you can either get better or worse. And you're doing slight things, whether you know it or not. I'll turn off that ringer. Whether you're doing it or not. And it doesn't.
Sorry to interrupt.
He's tag adding me in Instagram right now. Or he's targeted ads I'm getting for that, but I will look at that. Yeah. But these slight things that you're doing, you can either eat the salad or eat the cheeseburger. You get that choice, but every day you get that choice, and it's just a matter of, okay, is it helping you or is it hindering you? And if you do these small mundane things every single day in every aspect of your life that needs to be better, I can list them off, but I won't. Then where are you going to end up? And it's just going to be this. You're either going to see this, logarithmic curve upward curve of or exponential curve of growth, or you're going to see it of, not growth, like you're declining as a person. And you
the trending word now is parabolic.
Parabolic. Ooh, yeah. Very nice. Yes. Yeah. And that's just, it comes down to these little things that you do every day. Like, do you wake up at 5 or 5:30? Because if you wake up at 5 instead of 5:30 every day, I'm using extreme examples, but if you wake up at 5 instead of 5:30 every day for 365 days, you get an extra half hour of whatever. And what is that extra half an hour over a course of a year or a lifetime? It doesn't mean to lose sleep, but if you're, you understand it's doing the little things consistently over time that make any difference. And that's what you said, hitting singles, playing money ball, playing small ball.
Yeah. We create small things done over time. When we talk about relationships or anything like that, that creates trust. When we're doing it by ourselves, when we're doing it, we'll use the term in the dark, right? When no one's watching, the stuff that you do when you don't have to, you're creating trust with yourself. And that's one of the hard parts is like, when I set these goals, I know if I don't have trust in myself, I'm going to set these goals. Deep down, I know I'm not going to hit those things. Those aren't
goals. Those are dreams.
Right. Like I'm not, and I'm going to set them. I'm going to feel good about myself. But then when I don't hit them, I'm going to make an excuse and, I'm just not going to do them. But I found that doing these singles creates such a trust in yourself that like, no, I can do the things that I say that I'm going to do. And that really, the foundational thing for me, and the one that's actually in that book, and it says it right on the cover, is stop lying. And that's not talking about, it is talking about, the outright lies that we tell, but the biggest lies that we tell are the ones that we tell ourselves and justifying everything. So coming in from a business owner perspective is like, when I'm looking at the cold, hard facts of my business, am I willing to hear that? Am I willing to look at them and say like, this is working, this isn't working, this is where I'm at? Because what happens a lot of the time is we lie to ourselves about where we're at, where we want to go. We can't ever make a plan to go somewhere. It's like a map. I'm starting here. If I don't know where I'm starting, but I want to go somewhere, there's no route to it, right? Yeah. So when we talk about telling ourselves the truth, that to me was if there was ever a light bulb moment, that was it.
And that goes for, Instagram is a prime example, or it's just any social media is a prime example. We can tell ourselves that we're on Instagram creating good content and interacting and, creating good conversations with potential clients and marketing. We probably don't need to be doing that 6 hours a day. So where is the,
am I using this as marketing or am I scanning Instagram
or escaping?
That's right.
Or am I using it as my escape?
That's right.
From just like a numbing agent from what I should be doing. Am I procrastinating on it? Yep. And that's where, maybe if I'm going to procrastinate on work, I should go spend some time with my kids instead of, creating meaningful conversations on Instagram. Right. And that's a hard thing to do too, is getting away from what's important and what's not important. And again, just allocating intentional time for what is important.
Yeah. I want to be cognizant of your time here.
That's okay.
I think we could easily go for 3 hours.
10, yeah.
18 hours of talking. Yeah. And I think there's going to have to be a Patrick Vandoorne part 2, maybe part 3. But, coming into this, I would say that, understanding where you're at and coming as far as you've come already, what is something that you've already learned that you would have died to know right at the start?
Isn't this where we just say we know everything? No. It would have been that it would have been, honestly, for me, and again, this is going to change for everybody. For me, it would have been just scheduling and understanding your schedule. I think when you start a new business, there's this expectation that, well, there is an expectation that you have to create enough revenue to keep the business going. And so when you start a business, and you start a business like me, I had no clients. I had nothing. Like when I started January 1st, it was like you starting from zero. Your wife doesn't have a job like anymore. We're taking like this huge risk in the middle of a pandemic. You're going to start your own business with zero clients, with just a vision of what you want to do. And it was, well, I still haven't made a cold call. So I think I had one person message me to start, or I had one project to start or something like that.
Like that's your first client?
But that was my first client or whatever that was. Yeah.
How did that come in?
I was actually through my previous employer my previous employer out of Red Deer, he actually is the one who kind of encouraged me to start my own business. So this is something that I skipped over a little bit, but he said, Patrick, I think you need good business experience, but you're on the other, you need some, you need to see the other end of the engineering side, which is great. You seem like a business entrepreneurial person, and we want you to be a part of our business. Like he's a solo engineer running his own company with 7 drafters and 2 admin staff. He's a very busy guy. He also farms like 16 sections of land and has pig barns and dairy barns. And so he's like how do you live? How do you do this? Yep. You're insane. He's just one of those people. And financially, he's obviously very well off, but he wants out. He says, I don't want to be engineering in 5 years. I'm retiring, and I need somebody to, I want somebody to take care of my employees and stuff when I leave. I don't want to put 5, 6, 7, 8 people out of jobs, right? When I go to leave. So he said, but I need somebody that's going to, take over this, because I don't know and I like you and I think that you're the right person for this, but you're in Manitoba and you're not moving out here anytime soon. So he said, why don't you go start your own business? I'll support you. Like if you're running out of business or whatever, I'll throw you jobs and stuff like that to keep you afloat if you need it. Yeah. But you go do your own thing. You have your trials, you figure out how you want to run things and your vision. And then, at the end of every year, we'll chat and talk about plan and vision and everything. So he's my mentor. Like he's my mentor. He's my guy. But he and I haven't given him enough credit on here. But he said, okay, then in 3 to 5 years, let's hire somebody that you want to train that can work out there with me. And then maybe, at the time, and they do 10 mil revenue a year in engineering fees. So they do very well, but we'll hire somebody out there that, I can train and you can train on your systems. And then we'll amalgamate maybe at the end in the 5 year, and Kairos Engineering will buy out Richard's Consulting in the end. And that's kind of like the long short-term plan right now, is see where that goes. And that would be a great expansion across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, which I'm licensed in. What was the original question again? What was one thing I learned? Right. So where I got going, so this thing of scheduling, and really coming from, I knew I had a little bit of security with that, but at the same time I was starting with nothing. So he passed me my first job and said, here, do this for a little bit. And then I ended up getting some interest, and, I should have just called a few people, but I don't know, stubborn or something. But no, so then got to the point where, I was starting to get busy, but it just happened really fast. And I thought, if I could have an awareness of how much time things take, and not just like, how long does it take but like to actually do a finished product, like, oh, I could do that in a couple of days, but it actually takes 7. Well, there goes 4 days of schedule that everybody else for the entire year is backed up now, because everything depends on me, or I got to work more time. And I think that the thing that I wish I knew more was how to be more aware of how much time things take, but then, and how long things take when done to a higher level of quality. Because it's very easy to slap some lines on paper and say, by a contractor, but it's very difficult to actually figure out how the system's actually going to work and run the numbers and go through it and make sure that what you're doing is not, negligence, but it's a quality product. And then having a schedule of some kind, a whiteboard or something that's a little bit flexible, that you can actually write in, this day I'm doing this day, and like 3 months out. So right now when people are calling me, I'm saying, okay, I'm booking into March of 2022. That's when you need to expect that I'll be able to start working on this. And that's not for you, Dan. You're special. I'll work those long.
I'm ready on the cancel button.
But no, it's just an awareness of how much time things actually take, and putting that into practice with a schedule, so that when somebody calls you, you can be honest and set clear expectations of what they should expect.
Yep.
And I've had to make a few phone calls where I had
client experience.
It is the client experience. It absolutely is. And it's just customer service, and engineers aren't good at customer service. So how do you create a good customer experience? But like I had a couple of clients came to me in June that said, we're thinking about selling our house. We want to build a house. We're thinking about, building a cottage at the same time. Got a little, change to throw around here. We want to get started on the design. We're thinking about 2 years down the road, we want to build, but we want to get our plans done now. Oh, awesome. We'd love to help you out with that. I'm not that busy.
Perfect.
5 other jobs come in. Hey, I want to start construction next week. No offense, Dan, you were that person. Hey, I want to start construction next week.
None taken.
Yeah. And I got like a couple of projects right now. And then I had another person say, hey, I want to start construction before snow flies or whatever. And I just sent them their plans yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't like, and they were very good about it. And I was very honest with them. I said, hey, I'm just letting you know, I had some other projects come up that have construction starting right away. I have to push your project until, the first week in November. I'm really sorry. I understand there's a delay there, but I have to make this call. I have to. And, if your project was in construction, I hope that you'd understand that I would be there for you if it was in construction versus for the person who's 2 years out.
Yep.
And I think I was tried to be very clear with that, but that, to me, that hurts because that's not what I want to provide my clients. Right. Yep. And I'm not going to go and ask them for a 5-star Google review when I'm done. Number one, you can't, but number two, that's like, that's not, I don't expect them to give me a 5-star review. I don't think I delivered a 5-star service. And so yet, I mean, maybe like when we get there, like,
right. But I think that one of the big things is you're telling them the truth.
That's
which
huge.
Doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. And and I've also found that it's like, well, and I just called somebody the other day and said, hey, I'm going to be 2 days late on this. And they're like, you're calling me to tell me it's going to be late? We just expect it's going to be late. I was like, okay, this is going to be, starting a business is going to be very easy in this industry.
That's exactly how I looked at it.
Yeah.
Was coming into the building industry with the builders that we have in our industry. Like, all I have to do is, be good.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I just have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's just tell people the truth. Now, there's a way to tell people the truth when you track the emotional journey of a client, right? You don't want to tell them you don't want to drop bombs on them at certain times, but the transparency, it's why we're a cost plus builder.
Yeah.
Is because it's it's not just easier, but I think from a perspective of being empathetic with people as far as being able to be transparent about everything.
Yeah. And this is rabbit hole. This is
We'll save that rabbit hole for another time.
This is a short rabbit hole.
Okay.
Short rabbit hole. There's so many people that say, I built with this building company because they said it was going to be $200 a square foot, whatever it was. It doesn't matter.
Whatever that means.
And then, whatever it means. So then, but like when I went to say I wanted that faucet, they removed a $24 credit off my account and they added a $350 cost. And they just weren't transparent with what the level of finishes was in this house. Yeah. And so, and I think the industry's moving. They need transparency. The expectation has to be transparency. That has to be ground zero for comparing apples to apples across all builders. Yeah. That's my rap. But yeah, so the one thing, small. So the one thing that I did learn that I wish I would have known when I started my company in January is having a fixed schedule, understanding how much time things actually take to produce quality, and accounting for that and being honest and transparent up front with that with the clients, and then letting them make the decision.
Beautiful. I love it. I think that I would love to talk to you much longer, but we won't today. But I do want to just tell you, and if you already don't know, how much I respect you and how much I appreciate you being part of our team and working with us. But also, honoring your decision to grow. Your family's lucky to have you. Your kids are lucky. Your wife is lucky. And you're making it so that everyone that's following you on social media is lucky, because we know that we're hearing what you know to be the truth, and being transparent about it and educating. And I think that if more engineers and more business owners were like you, things would be a lot easier. But I want you to know that, and you're on the right track, and it's an honor to know you.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. My first one, so this big. Yes. Hopefully I didn't nerve myself out here.
No, you crushed it.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.
Oh, thanks, Dan.